Here at the Super Museum in Metropolis, Illinois. Just going to do a walkthrough. I shot one last year, kind of a little rushed. So this year I'm going to try and go just a little bit slower so everybody can kind of see everything. It's the entrance here, out to the gift shop. The first section when you enter on your right here is going to be the George Reeves section, which has got all collectibles and screen-used items from the 1950 series starring George Reeves. Right in front when you walk in is this display of various collectible plates and statues, all pertaining to Superman, obviously. Up here, curator Jim Hambrick. This was his very first collectible that he got back in the day, 1950s Superman lunchbox. Started the whole massive collection. Cool plywood cutout of Superman. Walk over here into the George Reeves section. So as you can see, quite a few items. It's Miss Noel O'Neill there. This is from Hollywood Ball that was held several years ago, and she was a guest. She was a guest here many years during the Superman celebration. These are some screen-used items from the TV series, different typewriters. And spin around over to this side. More screen-used items here. This is actually a breast pocket case for George's glasses that we're seeing many times on the series, as well as a handkerchief. Just more various items from the series. Got George over here in the corner, dressed as Clark. Let's head on down just a little bit further. Massive museum, by the way. More collectibles. Collectibles is just everywhere. One of the very first collectible official items made for Superman is this jointed doll from 1939. It says value $1,200, but I'm pretty sure that that's not accurate now. It's quite a bit more than that, I would think. Let's go just to the back room area here. This area was added a few years ago, just because of the collection growing so much. But part of the main reason this area was added was for a huge Doomsday that was actually donated to the museum. This was handcrafted by a fan. Sorry, I can't remember his name, but they actually had to bring it in through a roll-up door that's behind him that you can't quite see there because it was so massive. They weren't expecting it to be this huge, but he's got a place of prominence here. And more and more and more. More. I'm not going to try and point out everything because that would kind of ruin the experience. If you're attending the celebration or just visiting Metropolis, certainly want you to be able to come to the museum and see everything for yourself, not just rely on my video. So, two of the Superman arcade games over here. Unfortunately, neither one is currently operating at the moment, as well as Superman Pinball. And one of the classic kiddie rides that you used to find in the malls back in the day. Any child of the 80s like myself will remember these. Usually would be near the food court or central area of the mall. Hop in there, pop a few quarters in, and enjoy a ride that basically shook you a lot. I even have another room over here. The back right there, that is actually a piece off of water tower that used to be here in Metropolis that was torn down several years ago. And as they were cutting up the metal, obviously the water tower had a Superman and shield on it for the town of Metropolis. And they were able to get this piece of the water tower and have it on display here in the museum. So, interesting little story there for you. All the statues from the Justice League movie there. One of many Superman statues, life-size statues. Eventually they will be adding even more to the collection in the upstairs room here. They've used this area up here before. There comes the music. For an auction in years past, but that will eventually also be an area for more of the collection. Heading back into the main part of the museum here. I have an entire case dedicated to Kirk Alyn, who portrayed Superman prior to George Reeves in the 1940s in two movie serials. One was Atom Man versus Superman, and the other one was simply titled Superman. Over here I actually have one of Kirk Alyn's costumes here. And I'm not sure if this is actually any screen-used items or not, but if not, they would be exact replicas of some of the screen-used items that were used in the serials. And over into this section, I have an entire section for Henry Cavill, Man of Steel. Next case here is from the late 80s series, The Adventures of Superboy. Have a costume there that was worn by either John Haymes Newton, but I'm guessing Gerard Christopher, since his picture's to the upper right there. This one over on this side may have been John Haymes Newton, who portrayed the character in the first season of the series. Gerard did it from seasons 2 there on after until the series was canceled. These are from the Bizarro and Bizarro Woman characters that were featured in episodes of the series. The actor who actually played Bizarro was a guest, I believe, 2 years ago here at the celebration. And into this section, just more and more. So much to see, everybody. You just have to keep panning up and down because everything goes all the way up to the ceiling here, and the ceiling is a good, I'd say, 18 feet. So I got to turn over to this side too. Got stuff all behind me. So many collectibles. I mean, if there's a Superman item that was ever made, then you can almost guarantee that Jim has it in his collection. It doesn't matter if it's from decades ago or if it's most recent. So, and of course, going forward for the new movie next year, starring Mr. David Corenswet as the latest Superman, I have to squeeze in a whole section for all the collectibles that are going to be coming out for that movie as well. So, that might be what that upstairs area back there could be utilized for. Because they're definitely going to need the extra space. And it's at a premium for everything that's already in here. So I'm just panning by these cases here. I'm not even going to try and talk about exactly what all's in them. You can see that for yourself when you come by and visit for yourself. So. Even more and more and more and more. So I have some of the original collectibles here from the 1970s Superpowers series. I say 70s, I mean 80s, my bad. I'm thinking of Super Friends series that was in the 70s. And again, I'm just trying to pan by everything at a slow enough pace here so you can kind of get a look. Maybe focus in on some areas so that when you're able to visit for yourself, you'll kind of know what to look for and take some extra time to stare at when you come in. So these have always been cool. Never actually owned one myself, but these were these giant watches that came out back in the day. Pretty sure that these are all 5 designs. I can imagine Jim not having one. So if there's 5 up here, then that means that's how many there were. We even got a little super minion back there. Got Brandon Routh right here. He's actually a guest at the celebration this year. This is his 3rd time visiting. He's been here previously in 2012, 2018, and then this year. Joining him will also be Mark Pillow, who played Nuclear Man in Superman 4. I also have Bitsy Tulloch. That's not Bitsy. That will be a guest. She was Lois Lane on the current TV series, Superman and Lois. Gil Adler, who was a producer of Superman Returns, will be here this year as well as Kristen Kruk, who played Lana Lang in the Smallville series. Oh, and not to diss her, everybody knows Lois from Superman Returns. So, there you go. Over here have some different animation sales from, I believe this is the Ruby Spears cartoon. At least this one is. Actually, looking at Lex there, that would probably be from the Super Friends series. That's definitely his purple outfit that he wore back then. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. So like for instance, this one here says it's from Hanna-Barbera 72, so that's definitely Super Friends. But some of these could be Ruby Spears. There's George. Hey George. There's Mark Hamill. All of a sudden. Right here have Jeff East's backpack that was worn in Superman the movie. Of course, Jeff played the younger version of Clark at the beginning of the movie. Jeff was a guest here 4 years ago. And then up here, speaking of Mark Pillow, these are the boots that Superman 4 he wore in scenes where he walked across the pavement and actually melted it. So what they did, excuse me, was the bottom of the boots here actually have these metal heaters on them. And he walked across styrofoam, so it actually looked like his boots were melting the concrete. So there's another interesting little anecdote. But again, Mark is a guest this year, second time. He was here previously in 2012. Several wigs here worn by Christopher Reeve. As most people don't realize, Chris was actually kind of more of a natural dirty blonde. So he actually wore a wig each time that you saw him portraying the character. And then also have Marlon Brando's wig there. Some statues dedicated to Chris. I believe this is the Statue of Liberty that was used in Superman 4, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it says it right there on the certificate of authenticity. So this is the Statue of Liberty that Mark Pillow's Nuclear Man picks up and drops in the middle of the city. So I have the boots back here that were worn by, a little bit of a glare there. They were worn by Terrence Stamp, Jack O'Halloran, and Sarah Douglas as General Zod, Ursa, and Non. Then also have some of the Elders boots that were worn by the different Kryptonian Council members at the beginning of the original 78 movie. Over here have Mark McClure's Jimmy Olsen outfit and camera that were used in 78. Says this was used in the Hoover Dam sequence. Some more various items here. Morgan, who is Jim's daughter, and her husband Adam, they're co-curators of the museum. She wanted me to make sure I pointed this out, the new air conditioning system that was installed last year following the celebration, which makes it a lot cooler in here. So that is something else to look forward to when you come in, is a nice cool temperature. Have a Christopher Reeve costume here that was worn in Superman 2. Some other collectibles. Of course, Superman has to have his dune buggy. Everybody remembers those famous scenes from the movies and TV series when he's in his chill time just zipping around in a dune buggy. The helicopter, which is inspired by the scene from the first movie, but what's kind of hilarious is to see Lois is in there at the controls, while Superman here looks like he's about to punch her, basically, but of course he's rescuing her, but just that expression there, that's hilarious. Superman 4 poster. This here, try to describe this the best way I can. During certain scenes, when they have to have the cape to look like it's fluttering when Superman's flying, this was actually underneath the cape, and these different wires would move up and down mechanically and basically create the effect of the cape flowing in the wind to kind of give it more of a realistic look. That's the best way I can describe it. I'm sure it's not completely 100% accurate, but that is the gist of it. And this is a flying harness from 78 that Chris would wear under his costume for when he was up on the wires. This is Richard Pryor's, one of his shirts that was worn by His character Gus Gorman in Superman 3. I have some of the Kryptonian crystals here. Some more statues. You got Chris there, Terrence Stamp, Marlon Brando. More Chris. All these patches up here, this is what was worn in the opening scene with the Kryptonian Council members. If you remember, each one of them had their own insignia. So these are all the original insignias from Superman the movie that were worn by the council members. I got some scripts over here. There's Mr. Jack O'Halloran there, who's been a guest numerous times, as well as Mark McClure. Pretty much everyone that's ever been involved with anything Superman, with the exception of individuals like Henry Cavill, and maybe just a couple of other people, Terrence Stamp. Everyone else has made an appearance here at some point as a celebrity guest during one of the celebrations. So, like, for example, this year, Bitsy Tulik, this is her first year ever attending. So you can add her to that list. And Kristen Kruk is her first year also, which Kristen makes the last regular cast member of Smallville, with the exception of Annette O'Toole, that has appeared here. Everyone else, from Tom Welling to Michael Rosenbaum, I'm not going to go through the whole cast, but has been a celebrity guest here at one point or another. Have some of the iconic Superman telephones from back in the 70s, I believe 70s. Some more statues. A ton of belt buckles. Yeah, whenever you should be able to make a trip here to Metropolis, definitely make sure you take time to go through the museum here, because there's just so much to see. This is let's see, I've been attending to a celebration every single year since 2008, with the exception of 2020, which was canceled by COVID. And every single one of those years that I walk through the museum, I always spot something new. Now, of course, they're always adding new items, but there'll be things that have been in here since the beginning, and I don't even notice them until one of those return trips. So yeah, I mean, you could spend hours upon hours in here and still not be able to see everything. I mean, you really need to dedicate a full day to come through. So, various trading cards have been released over the years. I have some banners here. It's pretty cool. This image I've always liked, where Superman is just obviously being kind of full of himself here. As you can see that look on his face, purposely letting the lion bite his arm, and look at that lion's poor expression. I mean, he's going to need some dental work. And then you got the two kids back here that are just like freaking out, like, what in the world are you doing? And he's just like, yeah, I don't care, I'm Superman. The lion's over here like, oh God, my teeth, oh Lord, oh wow. So. Got some different sports equipment. So everything's kind of in certain categorical sections, but then at the same time, a lot of it's kind of mixed together. So have a lot of collectibles here from back in the 60s. These are always highly sought after, as just because of the age and rarity from it being so many decades ago. Got the muscle building set there. Yeah, and something about that too is just these kids' expressions there. I mean, Superman's all happy, but those two kids just look like they're about ready to go beat up somebody after using their muscle building set items there. Old radio here. People would have used to listen to the radio series that aired back in the 1940s. This is Clayton Bud Collier. He was the voice of Clark and Superman in the radio series. Different comic books from the 1992 Death of Superman and The Return, the Platinum editions, as well as the original. The infamous black bag that came out that everybody thought was going to put their kids through college, kind of like Beanie Babies. And then they bring Superman back, not even a year later. And I think the black bag now, pristine condition, go for about $25. This one you can usually find in a dollar bin. So Now the platinum one, that one still goes for about $250. So, because those were only packaged one to a case when they were sent out to the different comic book stores. There's Miss Helen Slater, who was a guest, I believe, back in 2019. She's been a guest here twice now. Head into the Supergirl section. So I have items from the Helen Slater 1984 movie. Have one of the creature's arms here from the Phantom Zone. Also have some prop items. Got a miniature Helen Slater Supergirl that was used for flying sequences. Also have her little miniature there that was used in some scenes in the movie. You can see in the background there, it's actually where they're filming the scenes. As well as the bracelet that she wore. And this is, I believe this one over here is a screen used costume that was worn by Helen. And then just some various Supergirl collectibles. I have some different versions of the poster. This is always kind of the oddest poster that they came out with. I mean, as you can see, it's a Supergirl poster, but the imagery has nothing to do with letting you know it's a superhero movie. So then we have this one and all the other ones up here. As you can see, just various ones. This one over here too is kind of an oddity when it comes to promoting the movie. I mean, she's obviously flying, but that's definitely not the Supergirl costume. And just another little bit of trivia for you here. The guy that's with her that played her love interest in the movie, that's the same actor that was in Die Hard that thinks that he can get Hans to agree to his terms when he's got Bruce Willis on the phone and calls Hans Bubby, I believe, and then it doesn't work out. The next thing he hears a gunshot. So that's this fellow right here that gets shot and killed by Hans. So just a little bit more movie trivia for you there. A wall of Supergirl collectibles. Of course, have Melissa Benoist. One of the latest actresses to play the character. And of course, she also had Supergirl's appearance in the Flash movie as well. So that was the latest actress to portray the role. And of course, now going forward, the DC Studios, there will be another Supergirl movie coming out, I believe in 2026. It will have yet another new actress portraying the role. So heading over into this section, this is Smallville and Lois and Clark. So I have a whole wall of Smallville items here. This is one of Dean Cain's costumes from Lois and Clark. More costumes from Lois and Clark. One's worn by Terry Hatcher as Lois Lane here. Have her wedding dress from that particular episode of the series. Have her super costume when she was Ultra Woman from the series. Another Dean Cain costume. Actually, let me pan back over to this one here. This is actually not Dean. Because as you can see from the one I just showed, Dean's was a much more shinier version of the costume. So this one here, I'm actually not 100% certain. It's behind a glass case. And that's definitely not the Dean shield either. So for that costume there, I will have to ask because I am not certain. I guess it could be from the Superboy series, but I'll find out. But anyways, yeah, as you can see from Dean's up here, his was that kind of more of almost a purple color. And you can see how the logo is different. More Terry's costumes. Some more items. And this phone booth here has an interesting story behind it. This was actually owned by Kirk Alyn, who I mentioned earlier, played Superman and Clark in the 1940s movie serials. He actually donated this to the museum. Jim Hambrick was his agent back in the day that would take care of his personal appearances. And you can see there's actually a picture of Kirk right here in this very phone booth. So this was actually part of his original personal collection that he had at his home. And you can pose in there yourself and recreate that photo of Kirk in there, just minus the costume he's got over his shoulder. This next section we're going through, this is more George Reeves, so we're almost back to the entrance exit of the museum. So got George over here again. This is pretty certain not an original costume because it would not just be here where you can just kind of reach out and do this to it. So. These are wigs that were worn in the Mole Men, Superman and the Mole Men, which basically kicked off the TV series. So these are the actual 4 Mole Men pieces that were worn by the 4 actors who played the characters. This is a breakaway shirt that was worn by George. And we do a quick change from Clark into Superman. Mr. Kryptonite costume here. This was worn when George would do personal appearances. He would have a character named Mr. Kryptonite who would appear on stage, hit George with a bat that was made out of balsa wood, which is very fragile, and of course it would shatter. And then he would go on to defeat Mr. Kryptonite. So in this case here, this is an original George Reeves costume that was worn following when the series went to color. In 1954 is when the series switched over to color. And this is a recreation of the 15-foot statue that's here in the middle of town, Superman Square. And pan over here to this very last section and just have, just some more various items. So there you go. That was the Super Museum. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Again, when you come to visit Metropolis, make sure you definitely stop by and pay a visit. You will definitely not be disappointed. And spend as much time as you'd like. Admission, I believe, is only $8, so very reasonable. And then when you exit, huge gift shop full of every single Superman-related item you could possibly think of. So that's all for now. Hope y'all have a great day, and hope to see you here in Metropolis soon.